Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Kisiwa, there lived a married couple named Dowdy and Salama. They had been together for over 12 years, weathering many storms side by side, but nothing could have prepared them for what would shatter their hearts forever. Their pain began the night they lost their newborn son. Dowdy never spoke of that night. He buried it deep within himself, but Salama would tell anyone who asked how it happened. She said the baby was stolen, taken right from her arms, on their way home from the hospital. According to Salama, it happened on an evening full of tired joy. That day, Dowdy had warned her, "Let's wait till morning. The streets aren't safe at night." But Salama, exhausted from childbirth and longing for her bed, had pleaded, "I just want to sleep at home." "We'll be fine, Dowdy, please." Reluctantly, Dowdy agreed. He carried the bags, and she held their sleeping baby boy, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. They walked quietly into the night toward their car parked a few streets from the hospital. Then it happened. A black car screeched to a stop beside them. 4 masked men jumped out, guns raised. Before Dowdy could react, one of them struck him hard across the head. Salama screamed. Another man tore the baby from her arms. Her cry filled the city air, a scream so loud it still echoed in her ears. To this day, from that moment on, something inside Dowdy changed. He never hit her, but his words became knives, sharp, cold, and deep. "If only you listened to me," he would say. None of this would have happened. Salama tried to grieve with him. She reached out, hoping they could cry together, mourn together, but Dowdy built a wall of silence between them. He drowned himself in work, locking her out of his world completely. Their home, once full of laughter, became a place of shadows. The baby's room was untouched. Tiny clothes folded neatly, a crib that never rocked again. Sometimes Salama would stand in the doorway, holding a tiny blue sock in her hand as tears streamed down her face. Dowdy would walk past her without a glance, as if she didn't exist. One night, unable to bear the distance, Salama whispered his name. "Dowdy." Her voice trembled. "Please, I miss him too." He didn't look at her. "Then maybe," he replied coldly, "you should have listened to me." Salama stepped in front of him. "You think I don't relive that moment every day? You think I don't hear his cry in my dreams? I ache, Dowdy, in places I didn't know I had." Finally, Dowdy looked at her, but there was no love in his eyes, only emptiness. "You had one job, Salama, to protect our son, and you failed." Then he walked away. The words hit her like thunder. Salama staggered back, her hands on her chest as if trying to hold her heart together. It was then she realized she hadn't only lost her son, she had lost the man who once called her his treasure. The man who once held her hand and said, "No matter what, I'll be here." That man was gone. What remained was a stranger. Days turned to weeks. The silence between them grew heavier. They lived in the same house like shadows, passing each other without speaking. Salama still tried. She cooked his favorite meals, left little notes on his desk. She even suggested they try counseling, but Dowdy rejected everything. "There's no counselor who can bring my son back," he said. One evening, Salama invited Dowdy's best friend, Baraka, to speak with him. Baraka pleaded, begged, reasoned, but Dowdy sat there like a man carved from stone. "I don't need help," he said flatly. "What I need is space from this mad woman." Salama stood in the corner, her eyes wide with pain. She said nothing as her husband walked out the door. The sound of it slamming shut behind him echoed louder than any scream. She fell to the ground, clutching her chest, gasping for breath. The silence he left behind was more brutal than his words, because in that moment, Salama knew it was final. Dowdy had left, not just her, but the memory of their child. He walked away from the woman who had carried their son, loved him, birthed him. The days that followed were a blur. Salama moved through the house like a ghost. She barely ate. She barely spoke. When her mother, Mama Rehema, heard what had happened, she came at once and refused to leave her side. "My daughter is all I have left," she told anyone who asked. "I won't lose her too." She watched Salama with eyes that had seen sorrow, but this pain, this kind of heartbreak, was something no mother could heal. At night, Salama's cries would echo through the house, so loud it felt like the walls were mourning with her. Mama Rehema would sit beside her, silent and steady, holding her hand until sleep came. But peace never stayed, not when the baby's scent still lingered in the air. Not when the ghost of the life they could have had walked through every room. At night, Mama Rehema would sit beside Salama, gently stroking her hair, whispering soft prayers through her own tears. But still Salama clung to one fragile hope, that one day her husband and her child would return. She began appearing on television programs, sharing her story with the world. "If you've seen him," she would say, her voice shaking, "if you know anything, please come forward. My baby deserves to come home." The media picked up her story. Some offered sympathy, others cruel speculation. They blamed her, questioned her choices, laughed behind screens. But Salama didn't care. Her heart had space for only one thing: finding her child. One morning, her old friend Lola arrived unannounced. She brought a basket of fruit, but her eyes carried something heavier. "Salama," she said softly as she sat beside her on the couch. "I watched your interview last night." Salama gave a faint nod. Her fingers clutched the faded blue baby blanket she always held on her lap. Lola reached for her hand. "You've been strong, you've fought hard, but it's been over a year and—" She hesitated. "I think maybe it's time to heal." Salama blinked. "You want me to forget him?" "No," Lola whispered. "Never. But I want you to live again, for yourself, for the love you still have to give. Your baby wouldn't want this pain to bury you, neither would God." The words hung between them like smoke. Salama said nothing. To break the silence, Lola reached into her bag and took out her phone. Her fingers trembled as she tapped into the photo gallery. "I didn't want to show you this," she said softly, "but I think you need to see it." Salama took the phone, confused, but the moment her eyes landed on the screen, her heart nearly stopped. There he was, Dowdy, her husband, smiling, standing beside a woman Salama didn't recognize. The woman's hand rested gently on his chest, her posture so familiar it pierced like a knife. Salama's breath hitched. She had spent months hoping, praying, dreaming of a reunion. She never imagined this, that while she drowned in grief, Dowdy had moved on. Her fingers trembled as she zoomed in on the photo. In the background, something caught her eye. A baby. There was a baby in the corner of the photo. Her voice cracked. "That's my baby." Lola leaned in, shocked. "What? That's my baby." Salama pointed at the phone, her voice rising. "Dowdy stole my son and gave him to this woman." Lola's mouth opened, speechless. Salama stood up, shaking with fury. She grabbed her car keys. "Take me there, now." "Salama, wait!" Lola tried to stop her, but she was already at the door. They drove fast, the air tense. Lola had learned that Dowdy had been staying in a guest house on the edge of Kisiwa with his new mistress, Zara. When they arrived, Salama didn't knock. She pushed open the door. Zara stood frozen, holding the baby. Salama rushed forward, snatching the child into her arms, and then she saw it. The baby was a boy. His face, so much like Dowdy's, his eyes, so much like hers. Tears poured from Salama's eyes. "How could you? How could you steal my son?" Zara looked stunned. "What are you talking about? He's mine." But Salama didn't believe her. In a rage, she pushed Zara hard to the floor. Lola rushed in behind them. "Salama, stop!" But Salama was already walking out with the child in her arms, sobbing, holding him like she would never let go again. She locked herself inside her house, drew the curtains and rocked the child back and forth, whispering lullabies only a mother would know. Mama Rahema stood nearby, frozen in disbelief. "Could this really be my grandson?" she whispered. "I don't know," Lola said honestly, "but Salama, she believes it with all her heart." Inside, Salama looked at her mother. "I'm sure, Mama," she said quietly. "He has the birthmark, the one on his arm, just like mine." Mama Rahema stepped forward, slowly lifting the child's sleeve. There it was. A small, distinct birthmark on the baby's upper arm, matching the one Salama had carried since birth. The room fell silent. Lola sank into a chair, stunned. "This can't be real." Salama held the child close. "It makes sense now. Dowdy never looked for him, never cried, never asked questions, because he knew. He planned it." Just then, a loud bang echoed through the house. A voice called from outside. "This is the Kisiwa Police Department. Open the door." Lola's heart jumped. She ran to the window. Outside, officers were gathered. Dodi stood with them, his face pale. "Salama," one of them shouted. "Step out, we need to talk." Mama Rahema turned to her daughter. "What do we do?" Salama tightened her grip on the baby. She looked toward the door. She knew what was coming next. Several police officers stood at the gate. Among them was Dowdy, his face unreadable and cold. "They're here for the child," Lola whispered. Salama stood frozen, holding the boy close. Her heart thundered in her chest. "I won't give him up," she whispered. "He's my child. He was stolen from me." She looked at her mother with pleading eyes. "Mama, help me. You saw the birthmark. You know he's mine." Mama Rahema's heart trembled with pain. But she took a deep breath and said softly, "Then we will prove it, my daughter, but not by running. Let the truth defend you." Then she turned to Lola. "Open the door." Lola obeyed. The officers entered quickly, and one of them took the child from Salama's arms. "He's mine," she cried, trying to reach him. But two officers held her back as they cuffed her wrists gently. She fought to break free, screaming. "His name," Dowdy walked toward her slowly. "You need to stop this madness," he said coldly. "Tell the truth, Salama. Tell them what really happened to our baby. Stop pretending." Salama's mouth fell open. "What? You staged the kidnapping. You gave our son to Zara, your mistress. You lied to everyone." Dowdy shook his head. "You're delusional. That child isn't yours and you know it." "I'll prove it," Salama shouted. "Let's do a DNA test. He has a birthmark just like mine." She pointed toward her arm, where a small crescent-shaped mark sat. "He has the same one, on the same arm." As the pain in her chest rose, Salama suddenly felt lightheaded. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred. "Mama!" she gasped. Then her body went limp, and she collapsed to the floor. People screamed. The police rushed her to the nearest hospital. Lola paced the corridor, her hands shaking. Mama Rahema sat on the bench with her eyes closed, whispering a prayer. Beneath her breath, hours passed. Finally, a doctor came out of the emergency ward. "Is she going to be all right?" Lola asked, her voice barely steady. The doctor nodded. "She's stable now, but we found something unexpected." He paused for a moment, then continued. "Salama is suffering from a rare psychological condition. It was triggered by deep, emotional trauma, usually involving loss." Mama Rahema's eyes widened. "What kind of condition?" Lola asked slowly. "In Salama's case," the doctor said gently, "her mind created a different reality, an escape from the truth. A story where her child was kidnapped. But according to our findings, that never happened." Lola's mouth dropped open. "I checked the hospital records," the doctor explained. "Her baby died just minutes after delivery. It was sudden and heartbreaking. But when she held the lifeless body, something inside her broke. Her mind couldn't accept it, so it created a story, an alternate memory, to protect her from the unbearable pain." He looked at them both. She wasn't lying. Not intentionally. She truly believes her son was stolen. Lola sat down, stunned. She really believed it? The doctor nodded. Every tear she cried, every word she spoke, it was real to her. Her pain is real. Her love is real, but the boy she's holding on to is not her biological child. The hallway fell into silence. Mama, Rehema whispered. Oh, my poor child, she's suffered too much. Moments later, Salama opened her eyes in the hospital bed. Where is my baby? She asked softly. He's not here, Lola said gently, sitting by her side. Salama sat up abruptly. Why not? Bring him to me, Lola. You saw him. You saw the birthmark. Lola hesitated. She held her friend's hand. Yes, I saw the mark. I saw the child. But I also saw something else. I saw your pain, Salama, and now I understand the truth behind it. Salama's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? The doctor explained everything. About your condition, about the trauma. Salama, your baby didn't survive that night. Salama stared at her, stunned. No, she said quietly. I know it's hard to hear, Lola continued, her voice shaking, but your heart couldn't bear the loss. So your mind built a different story. Salama shook her head violently. You're lying, all of you. He's alive. I held him. They took him from me. Her voice rose to a scream. Nurses rushed in to calm her down. Lola stepped back, tears pouring from her eyes. She watched her best friend break all over again, only this time it wasn't a lie that was breaking. It was the truth. Later that evening, when Salama was resting again, she whispered to her mother, I want the DNA test. You still want to prove it? Mama Rehema asked softly. I have to, Salama replied. If I'm wrong, I need to know. But if I'm right, then they all owe me an apology. Lola, still shaken, went to find Dowdy. She asked him calmly, will you agree to the DNA test? Dowdy looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Let the truth come out. The DNA test was finally approved, with a condition from Dowdy. He would take it too, just to prove to Salama once and for all that the child wasn't hers, or his. So the test was ordered, and the whole of Kisiwa seemed to hold its breath. The media waited. So did Lola. Mama Rehema waited too, clutching her rosary, her eyes full of silent prayers. 14 long days passed. Then the results arrived. Everyone gathered to hear the truth. The doctor opened the envelope and read aloud. The silence in the room deepened with each word. Salama is not the mother. Dowdy is not the father. The words hit like thunder. Salama stared at the paper in her hands as if holding it tighter would somehow change its meaning. No, he has my birthmark. He looks like me, she whispered, her voice trembling, but the truth was there, black ink on white paper. Lola covered her mouth in disbelief. Her eyes welled with tears. Dowdy stood in the corner, his eyes fixed on the floor, his jaw tight. He looked like a man hoping the ground would swallow him whole. Then Zara, the woman who had claimed the child, spoke, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, Dowdy, she said softly. I really thought he was yours. Dowdy turned slowly to her. Then whose child is he? Zara collapsed to the floor and wept. It was only once, just once. I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought he was yours. Who? Dowdy asked coldly. She hesitated, then whispered the name. Baraka. The silence cracked like glass. Baraka. His best friend. The betrayal echoed deeper than any bullet. Dowdy didn't speak. He didn't scream. He didn't punch a wall or curse the sky. He just walked out of the room, without a word, without a backward glance. Salama was left standing, broken, holding a truth she never wanted to face. Her hands trembled, her legs weakened, but deep in her chest, something finally made sense. The lies had cleared, the fog had lifted, and she remembered. She remembered how her baby had truly died. During her pregnancy, Dowdy had warned her, begged her, not to take alcohol. But one night, exhausted and angry after a fight, she had ignored him. She drank, and later that night, she collapsed in pain. Dowdy rushed her to the hospital, but by the time they got there, The baby's heartbeat had stopped. His lungs never got to breathe. And as the doctor gently placed her stillborn son in her arms, something inside her shattered, but Dowdy never forgot. To him, it wasn't about the wine. It was about watching the woman he loved dismiss his plea, then live in denial, spreading a tale of kidnapping, refusing to accept her role in what happened. And that was the bitterness Dowdy had carried. That was the pain behind his cold silence. To the world, he looked heartless, but in truth he was drowning in grief and fury, and that fury led him to Zara, a mistake he now deeply regretted because the child he thought was a second chance wasn't his, and the friend he thought was loyal had stabbed him in the back. It was a tragedy from every angle, a story of broken hearts, shattered trust, and truths hidden in pain. In the days that followed, Salama was admitted into intensive therapy. Her mind was too fragile to face the world. But Mama Rahema never left her side, and neither did Lola, who sat quietly by her bedside. Day after day, one truth at a time, Salama began to come back. Meanwhile, Dowdy disappeared. He left Kisiwa without a word. No one knew where he went, no one called, and Zara, she was left alone, with the child she now had to raise, the child born of betrayal, the child who reminded her every day of the lie that destroyed 3 lives. As for Salama, after weeks of darkness, something changed. She finally allowed herself to cry for the child she truly lost. Not a child stolen in the night, but a child who never got to take his first breath. And that grief, real, raw, and heavy, was the beginning of her healing. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. Some days the tears came like a storm, but despite it all, she kept going. She forgave herself. She learned to breathe again, and she chose to live. Not because she forgot, but because she finally stopped running. Moral of the story: grief has no one path. Some people scream, others stay silent, and some minds, like Salama's, build stories to survive the pain. But the truth, no matter how painful, is what sets the heart free. Never judge what you don't understand, and never carry anger for so long that it buries your ability to heal. Because only when we face our deepest wounds can we rebuild, not the life we lost, but one filled with strength, clarity, and peace.